So I'm here with Aprille Trupiano.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. And Aprille is going to be part of my Amazing Women in Business
Thank you.
series. And we've known each other, it's going on 10 years now.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me where you came from, who you are. Tell them, because I already know.
Oh my goodness. How far back should I go?
Well,
let's see.
Your family's in the restaurant business.
Yes. We own family businesses. So just in the brief
Yeah,
version,
like the 2-minute
Yeah.
thing.
So I used to, my degree is in fashion design, and I lived in Milan for a while, as you know, as a fashion designer.
I did not know that. And Milan's got to be a great place to live.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. So I lived there for several years, and I opened my own company.
Mm-hmm.
While I was in the midst of getting things off the ground, though, my family needed me back here to run my mother's business. My dad was sick, and the partners were stealing. It was a nightmare. So I said I would come home for 6 months, and I brought a very small roll-on bag. And I just used that bag last week, as a matter of fact. It was funny. And key being, I used it from here, because I've been back here now for 12 years. And so I now go back and forth to Italy each year, once or twice, to visit my family.
You were born here, though, right?
I was born here.
Right.
I was born here, and I was actually born in St. Louis.
Okay.
And before I was in Italy, I was in Chicago. So I left for a while.
Right.
And when I came back and I realized I was going to stay for my family, I had to find something else. I had to redesign my life.
Right.
And so I really found that people were asking for my business advice. How did you make this work? Because if I go back, Phil, where my experience lies is, I've been starting and running businesses since I was 20.
Right.
That was my first business that I sold at 21.
Which was only like 10 or 12 years ago.
Yes, thank you. So that's why we're still friends.
Right.
So I really looked at what could I do that I would love to do almost as much as I love fashion, because that is my first. Yeah, so I looked at it and coaching was something that just made sense for me. So I just started coaching other business owners in what I had learned, because the problem that I had when I started my business, whether it was the first time or the next time or the next time, I didn't have any really great mentors.
Right.
And the men that I could turn to, the business people I could turn to, were all men. And they were, there was always, yeah, sure, doll, call me. Well, sure, hon, call me at the office. And they were so busy. They were just busy.
Well, and that sounds a bit dismissive.
Well, different age, different time.
Right.
I grew up in an era that I'm used to being called hon.
In an Italian family.
Exactly. We were just talking about that yesterday at the radio station. So I said I'd rather be called hun than abroad. That is a word that I won't tolerate. So now I'm showing my age.
You got here. You left.
Yes.
You were in design. Mm-hmm. You came back to help the family run the businesses. You learned about business.
Yes.
Nobody really to mentor you.
Right.
So you had to figure it out on your own.
I had to figure it out. And I'll tell you, the way I figured it out is I was fortunate enough to have a couple of men that came in and coached me.
Okay.
And I'm grateful to this day. I am. And one of them became like a brother, where he just really held my hand and taught me, Phil, the beauty of systems. Because even though I'd had businesses when I was younger, I'd run businesses for other people, I'd run business for myself, and even starting my own business in Italy, that all came about because what I realized was that these designers didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Right. They knew how to make stuff pretty.
They knew how to make stuff beautiful and design, which I could do as well. But what they always wanted me for was to help them run the business. They had no marketing expertise. They didn't have, and again, I wasn't talking about Dolce & Gabbana. I'm talking about, but really well-known, smaller houses. Right. And so I was like, I can do this myself. And so what I always did was infuse process.
Right.
I infused system. I helped them with creating the systems to run the business. But when I came here, came back to run my family's business, there was so much I realized I didn't know.
Right.
And so these guys came in and really taught me the beauty of creating systems, creating processes, and really looking at what's the structure of your business. And as time went by, those became my strengths.
Well, and I think I know, and you and I both know a lot of entrepreneurs, and the one weakness 90% of them have in common is that they don't understand process systems. Most of them can't read a P&L sheet, much less create one. Yeah. And that it's probably besides undercapitalization, is the second most often cause for a small business failure.
Right. poor planning,
right,
and not enough money, and
right,
undercapitalization. I just had this conversation with a group of business women this afternoon, and we were talking about this,
right,
because one of them does funding, and we were talking about that. And I will tell you, the third thing that I see is that they also tend to lack in the area of leadership, whether it's leadership of themselves and how they run things,
right.
or leadership of their team. Right? And so those are the areas where I work. I work in the areas of creating the business systems and creating or creating a shift in their own self-leadership and leadership inside the team. And a lot of that, I actually, again, talking about this today with a client, and I realized that I learned a lot of that just from watching my father. I learned by watching. I said, I put the pieces together because I read a lot of John Maxwell. I study with John Maxwell.
Okay.
I'm like, I get it. Yeah, but there's nothing he has written or said that I didn't see firsthand watching my father run the unit. And again, it's looking at what that kind of character and what that kind of commitment and what that kind of vision and what that kind of behavior can do inside of a business.
Right.
When you can create, I talk to people about creating leagues of leaders inside your business. So, and in the union, it's, again, you don't have all of that, but you do have an opportunity, whether it's in business or in your communities, in your faith-based communities, in your families, when you create a culture where everyone realizes that, it's up to me to be the leader of my life, and then you bring that together. Oh my gosh, the results that you can create are just
and that's
amazing.
Maxwell wrote a book about that. He's written a couple of books that have that same theme. One is the 360-degree
leader.
Lead up, down, and sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Your job at whatever level you are is to teach those and lead those who are behind you, whatever the scale you're on, to assist those that are with you, and to help your boss be a better leader.
Absolutely.
And so that really gets to one of the core points is, the point, and we talked about this before the interview started, the reason I'm doing these is because I think that there's a perception about success I think it's gotten worse in the last 4 or 5 years, that people either believe that they personally can never be successful without understanding that success is a learned skill. Or that people who are successful somehow did that by accident. And I have not yet I've interviewed and talked to and known many, many, many successful people, and I don't know one of them where somebody just gave them this big old present called, here's your life, and it's all good, you don't have to worry about anything anymore. There you go, add water, I like that. No. So, so you talked about leadership is important, and one of the things Maxwell talks about is that leadership has levels. In his first book, 21 Irrefutable Laws. Law 1 is the law of the lid.
The law of the lid.
So and that has affected me more than once in my career. If you're a level 7 leader, which is a better than average leader, and you're working for a level 4 leader, that level 4 is never going to let you do what they hired you to do because they can't get out of your way because they're a level 4 leader. But he also talks about the leverage of leading leaders. And that's kind of what you're doing right now. You're coaching and training and teaching people who are entrepreneurs, small business people, that to teach them leadership and systems. Is that your core business?
Absolutely.
Okay. So talk a little bit about what are the processes for how does somebody learn leadership?
Well,
because
since
it's not
you
natural.
asked, well, it just depends on the person, right? Here's what I say, and what I say may be a little different than what most people expect. And so I will look your viewers right in the eye and say that I believe that every person is a natural born leader. It's not a gene.
Right.
It's not a gene that you get or you don't get. You're born with it. What happens is in life, things get squashed, right? So a teacher says, oh, this one's not that bright, but their brother is the smart one.
Right.
A cousin says, oh man, you're just silly. You're just goofy. A parent says, "Oh, but this is Janice. She's the shy one, right?"
Right.
And that's you become that persona.
You accept the world's view of you.
Yes.
Instead of creating the world's view.
Exactly. Right. So I believe that everyone's born with it, and what it comes down to is just resurfacing that and giving people the confidence and the faith in themselves and the courage. So I created what I call the 5 C's.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So
have you copyrighted it yet?
I have TM'd it. I've trademarked it.
Good.
And in fact, did you read my article in Forbes?
No.
Okay.
You were in Forbes and I missed it?
I was in Forbes twice last week.
I saw you as a cover girl on a style magazine.
I did that too. No, I did. I was on Forbes, and the article that I had on my 5 C's was completely my work, and it was #1 top read of the day.
Awesome.
Toot my own horn. I was so excited, you know? And we talked about the 5 C's in there.
Okay.
And so the 5 C's are about character, commitment, confidence, courage, and communication.
Perfect. Okay.
And really inside of character, it's about integrity.
Sure.
Okay. And people are either willing to step into integrity or not. And what I tell people is, look, I could go on and on about it. We can talk about it for hours, but what it boils down to is do what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, the way you know it needs to be done, even when no one's looking.
Especially when no one's looking.
It's that simple.
Right.
You know? And when you're remiss in that, clean it up.
Yeah.
Be responsible
Take
for it.
Ownership, apologize, fix it if you can.
Clean it up. Yeah. Right. So, it's real simple. Commitment to the vision, commitment to your people, commitment to what it is that you said that you were going to do in life, commitment to the people that you love, commitment to the people that you serve, to your, just commitment, right? And then confidence and courage are rather obvious, right? But confidence really is about having people see their value.
Exactly. And correct me if you disagree, but school systems today are trying to create self-confidence in kids, but they're doing it by lowering standards and making everything easy. Yeah. And I think that you get confidence from doing something that you thought you couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is why organizations like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts have things like rock climbing and horseback riding and hiking.
Absolutely.
Those things are fun to do, but the lesson behind the game is do something that you knew that you couldn't do.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's where I talk about courage also. Because courage is never about doing things that it's not about being fearless.
Exactly.
Because being fearless is just
stupid.
Well, but it's also just, if you don't have fearless, break it down. If you don't have a fear of something, there's no need for courage.
Exactly.
Okay? So courage is feeling the fear and moving through it anyway.
Exactly.
That's courage.
Right.
Courage is, and it's very necessary inside of leadership. You've got to have the courage to, I tie that very tightly to communication as well. Because you've got to have the courage to stand up, be first, take the heat when the heat's on, give credit where credit is due, move forward, even when people say you're crazy, take risk when people say you shouldn't. Calculated risk.
Do your homework.
Risk, due diligence.
Right.
And then I tie that to communication because it has to be a two-way dialogue.
Right.
You have to be willing to say what no one's willing to say, and even at times, especially when no one wants to hear it, to also have to be willing to hear what people have a hard time saying to you. You have to receive that communication. I was just talking with someone about it. It was yesterday, talking about the fact that a lot of times the breakdown in leadership is that people will say what they think the leader wants to hear. And Maxwell talks about it in 360. Right? Say what they need to hear. Right. And a leader has to be willing to hear that communication. So really, if you see my diagram in my Forbes article, it's a circular thing because it just all goes together. It's the 5 C's and they tie in. So leadership can be resurfaced. It can be strengthened, taught, if you will. But I don't think it's something that you have to, as you said, it's not something you bestow upon someone. It's just finding it.
Yeah, I think you have to earn your confidence, and that doesn't mean that you deliberately set the bar so high that you know that they fail. You have to set a bar that's a stretch but possible.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, there are people who are going to watch this who are maybe at the very lowest level in a company somewhere.
Right.
And they're
Exactly.
thinking about their boss, and they're hearing us talk about good leaders, and they're saying, that's not my boss.
That's not my boss.
And
so
you know
I can't be a leader.
Right. Which is why that person is still your boss, because they have not moved up. Yeah. And their boss probably doesn't, they can't fire them, and they don't know what else to do with them, so they're your boss. So I would just suggest to, if you're in that situation, outgrow them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And that is, you know, that's a great point, Phil, because when you're in that situation, if you step into your leadership, people will notice.
That's what I think. That's what
you'll outshine the person for whom you work, and eventually, you know, especially when you have an advocate. I always tell people, you know, if that is the case,
the cops call it a rabbi.
Okay, so you know, make sure you have an advocate somewhere so that people will toot your horn and make sure that upper management is seeing you shine, and then when it's time, you can hopefully just overpass that person.
And I think that that's a big perception problem that most people who have not experienced a level of success don't get, is that if you show up and do more than is expected, somebody's looking for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're hiding,
absolutely,
they're not looking for you. They're looking for that person who does stand up and, you know, when you do that, when you have that courage, you can call it the universe like they do in The Secret, but it's really people who are looking for you. Yeah. And it's the same with entrepreneurs and money.
Absolutely.
Robert Kiyosaki talks about, you know, if you're trying to get your idea funded, the first one's hard. The first one, you have to work really hard. Yeah. But once you have a track record, you get noticed. Because there are people with bags of money looking for something to do with it, because they can't do everything. Right. So they're looking for people to invest in. Right. And people don't know that. Right. You know, they think rich people are mean, and they're just careful.
Well, and you know, again, we were just talking about this is just so perfect. Talking about the fact that people who have money have typically come to the point where they want to do something worthy with their money.
Exactly.
You know, because you can buy. They typically they'll buy the stuff they want, and they'll have the toys, and that's perfectly fine. They've earned it. They deserve it, right? And they'll tithe a little bit, and they'll do stuff with their money. But when they get to that point where they really have that bag of money, they want to know that they're investing in a purpose.
Right.
They're investing in a bigger vision. And when you're the person standing there with it, and it aligns with their vision and their values and the things that they think are important in life and for the future, they're going to hand it over. They're going to give you some terms, but they're going to hand it over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to throw it away. They're investing it in a vision that they believe in. It's not necessarily their vision, but it's a vision they buy into.
Absolutely, because it aligns with their values.
Exactly. And that ties to something that I've talked a lot about that's just been a real big aha for me in the last few months. And that's when you discover your mission. We all have one. You know that because you're still breathing. If your mission was done, you're done. So you have a mission. God put you here to do something. And when you get your values, which is going to be closely related to your talents and your skills, because guess what? God gave you a mission. He gave you the tools to complete it. So when you get your mission and vision and values in a line, everything pretty much gets out of your way. People start jumping in to help you. The phone rings from somebody you don't know who is there to solve a problem that you may or may not even know you have yet. And I think that's a key element of success. If you're trying to do something and it doesn't feel right, if you're not totally, like if you don't wake up and say, I love going to work today because I get to, you're probably not doing the right thing.
You're not, well, you're not.
Or your head's not in the right place about
what your highest and best use.
Right. And that was a huge shift for me because like you, I grew up blue collar. Yeah. My dad was a union guy. He didn't go fix appliances every day because he had a passion for your dishwasher to work. Yeah. You know, he did it, first of all, to feed his 7 kids and take care of his wife. And secondly, because he was good at it. And he enjoyed solving people's problems is what his value was.
Right.
When he showed up, you were already having a bad day.
Yeah.
And when he left, you were having a better one. You know, and that's what got him up at 5:30 every morning and home in bed at midnight every night, you know, in the summertime.